Welcome to the Bears on Tap Offensive Line Film Room, bringing you all 22 views and breakdowns on the Chicago Bears offensive line. Presented by Quentin Q. Crisco and the one and only Ron Luce.
It did not mute me. And welcome back to another episode of Bears on Tap. This is typically our offensive line, all 22 show in this time slot this day. But with it being the wild card round, I was sitting here like for a large portion of Monday and even parts of Sunday going like, there are things that I don't have answers for about Bears Packers, that specifically about the Bears offense in this matchup, that I want to get better answers for. I was like, well, who better to ask than Bobby Peters, the guy who's writing all these scouting notebooks or playbook notebooks and all these tools to help people understand football. And Bobby was kind enough to join the show. So Bobby, how are you doing this evening? Thank you for joining us. And, where can people find your work?
First of all, thanks for having me, guys. And you guys have no idea how excited I am talking Bears football this time of year, like pertinent Bears football, like game planning, scheme. Like it is beyond exciting. Like when they hired Ben Johnson, like, you kind of envision what like success looks like, but like this is all we could ask for, right? Like obviously, we want to win Saturday, but like just the chance to play in these games is just, it's just a breath of fresh air. And you can find most of my stuff. I have my website kind of hosts like it's kind of the starting point for everything. Alert the Post. Alertthepost.com. It's a Substack. And then also I'm very active on X. I try to post on there often, and you can see a lot of my stuff on there. My handle is B_Peters12.
Yeah, no, we are excited. And I forgot about your Substack. There's an email that goes out with that too, right? Like weekly, or is it daily?
A couple times a week. I try to do like a little like a pick a play, kind of like what I do for game books. Is like I'll pick a play, kind of write about it a little bit, show the clip, and then I'll also at least once a week I'll post a full season cut up. So like when I put together my complete offensive manuals, what I do is I label every single offensive clip from that team from the season. So I have an inventory. That's like how you write the book, right? So like I have the inventory of it at the end of the year, and using software, you can create like cut ups of concepts, right? So like the dagger concept, for instance, right? Like a team that is really good at dagger, like the Vikings last year were one of the best dagger teams I've studied. I'm like, well, I need to make a dagger cut up from the 2024 Vikings to kind of go through all the different variations they ran, how they beat certain coverages, defense is trying to stop it. And it's just so useful having full concept cut ups. And I've always, wanted to have it. I'm like, why don't I just start making those? So every Friday I call it Cut Up Friday on the website. And then also too, I've had some extra time the last couple of weeks. I've been trying to sprinkle some extra articles in, over the holidays here too.
It is truly you, Bobby, are an outstanding resource to the football community. So we appreciate the work that you do. And any of our listeners, you want to learn more about football, Bobby is your guy. But Ron, I think I'm going to toss this over to you for the first question that we got here.
Yeah, man. And really quick too, just for everybody out there that's curious about Bobby's work. I am fortunate enough to have a subscription to Alert the Post. I love it. I'm on it every single day. So can confirm it's fantastic. I've also got my Bobby's Peters collection sitting right here, as a matter of fact, of his books. So can testify. It's awesome stuff. I can't agree with Q more, Bobby. Your stuff is fantastic, and it's been a great resource to have for, just I think football fans in general that even want to learn more about the sport as well, and more of the X's and O's. And speaking of your books, I think this is a great segue into our first question. In creating your next book, which, Bobby, when I tell you I'm very excited for this one, I'm very excited for this one. The 2025 Bears Offensive Manual one is going to be electric. But in creation of that book, what are one or two concepts that really make Ben Johnson's offense unique, and kind of how can some of those concepts be weaponized against the Packers this coming Saturday?
So the first, especially the starting point with his offense, right? I think he even said this in his opening press conferences. He's like outside zone, wide zone, mid zone, whatever you want to call it, right? There's a lot of different terms, and there's some nuance as far as like running back and offensive line aiming points with those terms, right? But we're kind of all talking about the same thing, right? It's not inside zone. It's an outside zone, right? So a specific version of that, I talk about this, I've written a section on the book for this one already. So, Sean McVay, especially when he first got to LA, was outside zone weak, right? They go 3-by-1 and 11 personnel, run outside zone weak, run duo, right? That's kind of their bread and butter. Kyle Shanahan, he'll get into 21 personnel, and they'll run what I call full flow outside zone. So they'll go to the tight end and to the fullback going the same way. And there's about 20 different ways they can run it. You can run it. You can have the fullback working out for the safety. You can have the tight end comboing to the safety, the fullback inserting for the Mike. You can have the tight end and fullback comboing together on the end man on the line of scrimmage out to the corner. Like there's 20 plus different ways they do it, and they do it so well, and they game plan it differently every week. And that's why they've been a nightmare in the run game for a long time, right? Very different than what McVay runs, but it's still the same concept family. Well, the specific version that Ben Johnson is elite at is a version where it's instead of outside zone weak, now we're running 2x2 outside zone to a tight end. And they've got a lot of different ways they do it. The section is probably like 15, 20 pages long, all the different variations. Every week, they find ways to be successful with it. And that's kind of their bread and butter run game starting point that everything else kind of, starts there.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because we do talk a lot of offensive line and run blocking on this show, and I feel like we've noticed that a lot, that creativity that he really brings in with those zone concepts and how many different like mid-zone concepts he's incorporating in, where the insert is going. It's all like, so I'm sure you said it's like 20 pages. I'm sure it's 20 jam-packed pages of detail in there. But kind of along the same line of concepts, like, are there any concepts that you expect the Bears to attack that might not be so much as staples within the Ben Johnson offense, that might be more specific to attacking this Green Bay defense?
So I can't remember the order I sent you those clips in. If you are you able to pull those up? So
this was the first one you sent.
All right. Yeah. So this is a play action concept the Bears have had a ton of success with so far this year. I bucket this as, I call it like generically speaking, I call it the deep curl concept. So what it is the way the Bears use it is their way of attacking the boundary hook window. Okay. So the ball's on the right hash. We're attacking the right boundary hook window. All right. So that curl runner is going to run 15, 18 yards. And he's going to sit down to usually just inside the inside edge of the numbers. In the diagram, it's a little bit further inside, maybe in the clip he got bumped in or something, but that route has been very successful for them. Luther Burden all year has had some big catches on it. I think Roma Dunze might have had one or two as well. But it's just been, Caleb sees it well. And they hit, I want to say in the first matchup with the Packers, they hit it twice for big plays. The reason it's been so successful for them, and this is kind of something like a bigger theory I've been working through as I study all the different offenses this year, is it's a play action concept, right? Play action is good. We all know that, right? So it's a play action concept, but it's a 7-step concept. So it takes longer for things to develop downfield, right? And this is an offensive line podcast. You guys like when the ball comes out fast, right? You don't want that ball. You don't want that quarterback standing back there all day. It makes your job harder.
Never.
All right. Well, with modern defenses and how they're doing, I mean, Brian Flores, Halfley to a degree as well, will disguise the living heck out of the coverage shell for the quarterback. And if I'm a quarterback and I'm playing in shotgun, I catch the ball, I take like a quick 3-step drop from gun, and I look up, it's going to look completely different than it did pre-snap, right? And defensive coordinators understand this, and this is why they do that. But when we go a play fake and a seven and a hitch from under center, by the time Caleb gets to his 5th step, he sees the disguise, right? The disguise has declared itself, right? They could start off in like a mug front, looking like cover 0 blitz, and they could scram out into a Tampa 2 coverage. By the time Caleb gets to his 5th step, he sees it. So now he's on step 6, 7, and he's hitching up. He knows that deep curl window is going to be there, right? Based on the coverage and based on who's dropping there. So it allows the quarterback time to see it. Now, if we throw the ball on 7 and a hitch, the offensive line, you guys won't be complaining too much up front because the ball's out on time, right? It's, just it's a half a tick longer than it would be like on a 5 and a hitch or something like that, right? And the nice thing about this concept too is, right, our check down. So we've got the fullback kind of running like a check flat. So he's going to replace that. If the hook defender doesn't buy the play fake and he gets a ton of depth, that check flat needs to be in vertical alignment with that curl route when these routes are breaking, right? And now we can replace that defender, Caleb 7 and a hitch, ball's going there instead, right? Say the defense plays some sort of post-snap cover 4, right? So we got a safety robbing that deep curl. We've got a flat defender or a hook defender who's lashed onto that, right? But the Mike is flying out of there, all right? So now we've got the running back 7 and a hitch. Caleb can reset for that over the ball route, right? That's your like true check down, right? The fullback's part of the high-low. The running back is like your true check down, all right? Now, what makes this concept and what takes it to the next level for me is, this is what's going to take the Bears from 1.0 to 2.0 in this offense, is the route from the Z receiver here. Okay, this is what I call a deep over. In a lot of playbooks, you'll see it called a field post, right? It's the receiver's going to run to 15 yards. He's going to kind of run his route. The break point to this is somewhere between the hash and the numbers, probably a little bit closer to the hash, and he is going to scream across the field. This was the DJ Moore game winner in Week 16 against Green Bay. It was that route, right? It's a different concept, but that was the same route. The Packers, and that game winner to DJ Moore is a perfect example, is they play a ton of aggressive quarters coverage. Okay, we just got done saying quarters isn't great. Deep curl is not great against quarters because there's usually a quarter safety kind of just sitting there, right? At that point into the weak hook window. All right. So what we need to do against quarters is we need to have alerts built into our pass concepts to take advantage of this look. All right. And that's exactly what this deep over is. And that's exactly what happened on that touchdown to DJ Moore to win the last matchup with the Packers. And in the first matchup with the Packers, there were a couple of specific plays where Caleb didn't correctly identify the alert pre-snap and he didn't get there. And so if he sees that it's quarters coverage pre-snap, or if we identify that, then the alert becomes the primary, and then we get to our checkdowns, right? So like it kind of changes the read, right? Against quarters, that route becomes activated. So long story short, this is a concept that's been successful for the Bears, the read, right? The deep over is a route that they've been getting better and better at. They one of Luther Burton's the first touchdown against San Francisco was a deep over, different concept, but same route, right? Same idea. They're alerting it against that like a poach quarters. Against that specific play call. So this is kind of like a meld of a lot of stuff that I want to see. I want to see Caleb activate these quarters alerts.
And speaking of,
go ahead, Ron. I was just gonna say, so that deep over, that's primarily just like we see that hit against quarters is what you're saying when you're saying it's a quarters alert.
Yep. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a clear out route that's not really an active part of the read. Okay. Yeah. So like if you see man. I mean, I guess he could kind of alert it against man coverage too, but usually that middle safety will take it. There's nothing to really occupy him. But like, say you're watching a clip and there's like, if they're playing cover 2 and like, oh, that post opened up late, in this specific play call, it's like, well, Caleb's not taught to get his eyes there, right? So it's you can't just, your eyes can't be everywhere at once, right? Like we have to, the biggest, one of the most successful quarterbacks in the NFL, their eye discipline on where their eyes need to be and where their eyes are paramount to their success.
Mm-hmm. And so this is probably a 101 question, not a 201 question, but if this is quarters, what's occupying the two middle field defenders?
What do you mean?
Like, so the way that I'm looking at this is the two outer quarters are being occupied by the hook route and the deep over. But what is drawing the two middle defenders in the quarters?
So we're attacking. So the boundary safety, he's the guy that we're trying to hit this ball over the top of, right? So this ball should be caught. If we go back to the DJ Moore catch, I mean, he probably catches that like just inside the numbers, possibly. I can't remember. I'd have to pull up the clip, but yeah. So if that safety, he's our danger player on that deep curl route. If he drives it, that's why we're trying to take it over the top, right? So that deep over runner, he needs to win one-on-one against the safety on his side of the field, right? So that's why this route, you see the slight inside stem from the Z. He's got to win inside of that safety, right? And that boundary corner usually isn't much of an issue because he's going to see that inside release of the X receiver. He's going to kind of match it. He's going to see him settling down. His eyes are going to be inside and low on that X receiver. He's not going to see usually. He's not going to see that Z receiver trying to work over the top of him.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So it's more like you're pulling the interior quarters more than the outside guys. The outside guys are more like they see the release and they're just pedaling.
Yep. Yeah. And then the corner to the Z receiver side, he'll be in outside leverage, so he'll be in poor position to track that route as well. Yeah, we're trying to, if it's an alert for that boundary safety, the safety to the short side of the field in this specific play call.
Okay. Yeah, because so think about it the two this way, right? When you got quarters coverage, those corners are flying out. They're playing the sideline. They're playing about halfway from between the hash and the numbers out. And then this, because the over routes are getting to that second stem of the quarter. And then again, if he bites on the curl, the alert's there. If he doesn't bite on the curl's there all day long.
I see where you guys are kind of getting at with this. So a lot of the quarters coverages in NFL, college, and even high school ball now are like match quarters. So like
and that's what I think I overestimate. Like I don't understand match rules that well. Being an offensive line guy, why would I? So
usually that boundary corner will be matched pretty tightly to the X, but he's still taught to play with high and outside leverage, right? Okay. So his eyes, and especially because he's matching the X, his eyes won't be looking back to the middle of the field.
Okay, that tracks. Ron, did you have something you wanted to ask, or did we cover it in there?
No, I do have actually something I wanted to follow up with. Now, because obviously everybody's going to remember the DJ Moore over route for the winner against the Packers. Do you think the over becomes more dangerous with Luther Burden running that instead of DJ Moore? Or do you think it's about the same?
Luther Burden, is he a better athlete than DJ Moore? I think so, right? Mm-hmm. And you need speed for this route. This is pure speed. This is pure speed, running away and then tracking the ball downfield. They've really only asked DJ Moore to run this route this year, and they mix it in with a bunch of other different concepts too, and they have specific deep over concepts where that's the primary. Mm-hmm. In this play, it's an alert, but it's usually been DJ. I'm trying to think of a specific example where it hasn't been DJ Moore. Like even
I feel like you said, we've seen Burden in the X route on this. I feel like I can think of a few of those.
Yep, Green Bay and then Pittsburgh. He had a big catch. This diagram's from the Pittsburgh game. So this is a specific variation they ran in the Pittsburgh game. So they'll usually so Burden or Rome will be the primary on the play with DJ kind of as that clear out, but it's an alert activated like we said against match quarters.
Yeah, and Bobby, I do really appreciate you mentioning the offensive line aspect of this play because I have struggled a little bit with like how I weigh looking at like Caleb's time to throw. It's like, but so much of it is deep drop play action where it's like, it's just going to be a longer time to throw. And the misdirection is handling so much for the offensive line that like, they're not tasked with doing things that aren't possible for them, which is always kind of the big question with the deep drop in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly like some of our local media members. That'd be a good question for some of our offensive linemen, on the podium is like, hey, Ben Johnson loves, 7-step stuff off play action. What's that like for an offensive lineman? Is that challenging? Because we as Bears fans go back to the Mike Martz days, right? And, we always heard on talk radio, oh, that 7-step drop is terrible. And it's like the best offenses in the NFL are feasting on it. The Rams, arguably the best offense in football this entire season. I mean, Stafford's taken 7 and a hitch, 15, 20 times a game, right? Like, so they still do other stuff really well, but like those big plays to Puka down the field, Adams, like if you can throw a 7 and a hitch on time, you can really carve up a defense, especially like I was saying about how modern defenses play football nowadays. Now, the problem is if you get back there on 7 and you're holding the ball, padding the ball, you're not throwing the ball on time, you're not getting your check down on time. If your primary is taken away, now you're in big trouble.
Right.
Definitely.
Now,
go ahead, too, I was going to say also, that's with the importance, like we've talked about on past O-line shows as well, is that's the importance of selling proper play action, right? You can't half-ass your play action because if those rush defenders know, oh, this is just a bullshit play action pass, they're coming up field and that 7-step drop becomes a lot more tedious because then there's not enough time for Caleb maybe to set up and hit his ex receiver here. Where
100%.
If you sell it right, because then they adjust to think it's a run, try to play their 2-gap or 1-gap responsibility, and then they're, oh crap, I got to rush the passer now, and that's why the 7-step can then work. So got to have good play action with it, whether technique wise, right. Otherwise it's not going to work. Speaking of this Bears offense,
Bobby, were we good on these graphics, or did you want to get to the other ones now?
It's up to you guys. I'm just a guest here. You tell me.
Okay, I wasn't sure if they were tied into other questions or not, but if these are all tied into just kind of this attacking Green Bay concept, I think we can keep rolling through it.
Yeah. So this is a one of my favorite sections to write in the book. This one's 30 plus pages. Is the high cross concept family. The Z receiver here is running the high cross. So this is a specific variation of high cross that I call wave. So normal high cross, there's one front side vertical. On wave, there's 2. So here we have the F and the X are running the front side verticals here. And they're clearing it out. We're trying to create a high low with the Z and then the running back on the check down on the high cross concept here. This specific version, I think they ran, I want to say against the Eagles. But the reason I like it so much, and actually I like this from under center a little bit more, and why I think it would hurt Green Bay is, so a lot of times the Bears run game, and a lot of NFL run games is they'll short motion that Z receiver in to kind of handle a down safety in the run game, right? Kind of even out box numbers against single high looks. They can run duo, inside zone. Even the Bears run some outside zone looks from that. So it's, under center, motion the Z in. We're selling our core run, right? Insert him now we're really selling it when we insert him too, right? The Rams have been, I'm sure you guys have seen the clips on Twitter, people posting stuff. Oh, the Rams, another big play this week off inserting Puka into the B gap or something, right? Like the Bears kind of dabble. They're not huge with it. They've done it with Loveland a few times throughout the year as well. But this specific version, this version of the high cross concept is all purpose. The Packers play a lot of aggressive quarters, which we talked about already. Usually on high cross concepts, we got to activate an alert, but on these wave variations, we don't, because we have the F will clear out that safety to his side. The X will clear out the corner, so we don't have to worry about a safety robbing it because we got an extra vertical to occupy him. So now we can create a clean high-low with our Z receiver and our running back on the check down getting out.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I can see the quarters beater really clearly in this one, where it's like you said, the X and the F are clearing a lot out for you. And it's like, is that really the best way to just kind of attack quarters, at least with downfield concepts? Like, you got to get guys deep and then crossing. Like, is that just a simplified way to say that's a good way to beat quarters?
Yes. You want to force the defense to communicate the safeties and corners, especially like these match quarters coverages down the field like that. Exactly. And especially with Rome back, if he's fully healthy, Rome has been great on these crossing routes. I want to say against the Ravens, he had a really nice route against man coverage, which, if you call across like a high cross like this against man, like if you got a guy who can win on that one-on-one, I mean, that really opens up the playbook as far as like the different things you can get to within the cross family of concepts. Rome is a guy that can do that really well. So with him back, I think we kind of, the Bears haven't featured some of their true cross variations the last few weeks, but with him back, I'm hoping we can kind of get to some of that with him featured if he's fully healthy and let him cook on these.
And you're saying, I'm sorry, which spot was he? Was he the Z on this?
He'd be the Z in this specific example, yeah. But the Bears, I mean, they do such a good job, Ben Johnson, of like you can draw up like a typical formation, and any guy can line up at any spot essentially. Like especially like even with the tight ends, like Loveland and Cole have been lining up at every receiver spot too. Like they'll call 13 personnel on the field, and they'll be running 11 personnel concepts, and it's just like the personnel has nothing to do with the play call. It's absolutely, it's fun to study. And like, I know we're kind of getting off subject here, but it made me think of it. Colston Loveland is running like Justin Jefferson routes when it comes to like what he's being asked to do. Like there was a dagger clip that I broke down that they completed in week 9 where Colston Loveland is running an 18-yard dig from like a receiver split, like outside stemming, speed cutting. Like, I mean, this is a route Justin Jefferson has feasted on. I mean, we just got, I mentioned the Vikings and dagger earlier in the off the bat there, and like seeing Colston Loveland do stuff like that. Like I have so much fun watching him every week.
For some reason, what you just said all there clicked to me in this way. Like it's the bizarro Brian Flores, right? Like where the personnel doesn't matter and everyone can line up anywhere. And like Loveland can be his Andrew Van Ginkel at that point, where it's like, this guy does anything.
Love it. Love the comparison.
Like it's defense has always been easier for me to understand for some reason. So
yeah, no, that's a great comparison. I've never thought of it in those terms, but that's a great comparison.
That is a great comparison.
So we got one more here to get to.
And quickly, Q, we got a question up here from somebody in the comments for Bobby. Can you be successful with digs and curls against quarters if they're thrown with anticipation?
Without going on a 15-minute rant, certainly. It depends on the types of digs and the types of. So a dig by itself is hard against quarters if you don't have anything inside of it to occupy the safety. So that's why like daggers are better against quarters, right? You've got that inside vertical to clear out that safety, and now you got that dig working, behind it, right? It's one-on-one with the corner, and we're high-lowing, the hook player to that side. If you've got a dig by itself, that's why, or like the curl by itself, right? You kind of need some sort of alert versus quarters. So it just keeping it super generic. That's kind of how I view it.
And this might be a super basic statement, but like against quarters, I would think a curl's only as good as you sell vertical off the snap, right? Like to get the guy moving backwards faster than you're moving forwards, essentially.
Yeah, and there's different types of curls. So like the one that we were talking about it's a downfield, it's an 18-yard like deep hook curl, right? Mm-hmm. When we all think of like a basic curl flat combination, a basic curl flat, we're high-lowing the flat defender. So that's why it's a little bit different. We're trying to high-low a hook player in this case. If we were trying to high-low like the flat player, Ben Johnson's got a separate curl concept for that I break down in the book. It's called Z curl. So if you buy this book in a couple weeks and you're looking at it and listening to this, it's the Z curl concept. And the break points for that route, if we're into the boundary like that, would be the outside edge of the numbers. So now we're reading the flat defender because we're a little bit further wide. The flats are outside and the hooks are kind of that space like just outside the hash. And then you've got the middle hole, which is kind of like the space between the hashes and like a little bit outside the hashes.
And if you are interested in finding Bobby's store, it's in the YouTube description. So just click the link. It'll take you to his Amazon page. I assume that's the right page, right, Bobby? It's the Amazon one for all your books.
Yep. Yeah. The author page. Yep.
Okay. And then we got one more concept here. And Bobby, what are we looking at on this one?
Yeah, so this is now we're getting the ball out a little bit quicker here. This is a part of the 5-step family. So Ben Johnson in his time with Detroit and Jared Goff did a really good job of throwing the levels concept. So when I hear levels, I think of Peyton Manning, Indianapolis Colts, Denver Broncos, where you got an outside 5 and in by the outside receiver and then a 10 and in by the slot or tight end. So that's kind of the concept we're looking to the boundary here, but with a slight twist. So this is kind of a little sneak peek into one of some of the analysis in the book here. Throughout this year, I can't remember which game, but they started messing with that inside route. So it wasn't like a 10 and in, like a basic dig cut. They started making it more of like a seam, like a bender. Kind of like it looks like more of like the inside seam on like a 4 vertical concept. And that had a couple of benefits. So I'll kind of tease the benefits. You'll have to buy the book to read the benefits on why it makes sense for what they're doing. But they've been that 2-man route concept. They've had a ton of completions. Colston Loveland in this case would be lined up at the Z most often. And it's post up basketball at that point, bodying up a one-on-one defender if they want to play man or a tight match coverage, and he's winning, he's coming in. He's been super successful. That Burden's done it once or twice, but Loveland's been feasting on that, even going back to like week 6. That seam, without getting into some of the benefits of it, that's been open too. I think they hit it once. I think Rome actually had a big completion against Pittsburgh on this concept. So once again, quarters isn't great for this play call, right? Because you kind of got that safety to match quarters who's going to match that seam. And you've got kind of like an apex flat player that might be just end up sitting in that window for that, I call it a fin route, the 5 and in on the outside guy. So you need a quarters answer, not built in as an alert, but because we're in the 5-step family, we can have a backside quarters beater, right? So this is the spot dig concept to the backside here, where we can high-low. In this case, it would be the mic. So we're going to use the H. The H is going to check swing to kind of pull the flat player out, and the mic is going to kind of be our middle hook, or like, he'll kind of expand with the back, and we'll kind of get our high-low on him with the X and the F. And with this basic dig or this in cut coming from the X, he can run away from that quarter safety, right? We're not running into him, we're running away from him, right? So Caleb can sets for the adjusted levels concept into the boundary here on the left. It's good against cover 2. It's good against cover 3. It's good against man. But if he's got that safety sitting there on the seam, if he's got the apex player who's, in this case would probably be like the will linebacker who's kind of just floating out into space, kind of headed towards the numbers there, he'll reset for the basic on the backside. And he actually hit this. He actually hit one of these backside basic dig cuts in week 16 is one of my favorite in the last month or so, like him working a full progression, getting to the backside example. So it's an all-purpose play call. It's something they've been successful with. I want to see them continue to call it, and I want to see them hit Green Bay with it again this week.
You mentioned Detroit days of Ben Johnson, and I'm looking at this deep in and reliving Amon-Ra St. Brown last week, just feasting on that route. Obviously out of a bunch of different concepts, but the exact same idea of just, hey, if he's there, hit him. And, Detroit has certainly kept kind of some of those level concepts in their playbook, even since Ben Johnson is.
Oh, for sure. I even tweeted this out the other day. Like, I hope I have time later this spring, but like the Lions still do a lot of good stuff on offense. Like I know, Johnny Morton, they ended up kind of quiet firing him mid-season, but their tape is good. They do a lot of good stuff, like their play design, especially in the pass game. I think their run concepts got a little stale. I think that's kind of where they missed Ben a lot. And obviously I think there's other issues that they had to with kind of like play sequencing, but as far as like play design and the different stuff they were getting to, there's stuff that I want to study them later this off season, because they still do some good stuff. Heck yeah.
Well, Bobby, thank you for sharing those plays with us and sharing some of your book. That make sure everyone watching goes and checks that out once it's released here. Ron, I think you have the next question teed up here.
Sure do. I got to know, Bobby, how do you think the Bears offense performed against the Packers in the previous 2 matchups so far this season?
Inconsistent, right? I mean, I think that's been the theme for most of the year. I mean, looking at the numbers, they're a top 10, top 5 offense in a lot of metrics. But those games it didn't feel 100% consistent, right? The slow start in the first matchup with the Packers, and then they kind of hit like I know they had a good first drive in the second matchup, and then obviously the 4th and 1 play call that we're not going to talk about. That will not be covered in the book. And then they kind of had like a cold spell for some of the game. And there was definitely inconsistencies, right? And I think especially with the pass game, so 2 things that I think drove the inconsistencies. One, Jeff Hafley is so darn good at manufacturing free runners at Caleb. And now, even without Micah Parsons, he's able to just through scheme, break pass protections. Like, he's a smart football coach, and they do a good job of it. And they've still got enough talent on the defense to affect him. So I think Ben Johnson, because I remember some of his game plans against Brian Flores the last 2 years in Detroit are still like you frame the game plan because it was so darn good to handle all the different crazy pressure looks. And I think he needs to kind of dig his heels into some of that stuff this week. Have different screen. They need to be better in the screen game to handle some of that. And I think they need to get to some more of their max protection stuff too, which they haven't done a ton of recently. I think those are a couple answers. And then I think something that'll kind of ease the inconsistency is if we kind of generate some big plays like we were talking about, we got to activate those alerts against those quarters looks, because those quarters looks, generally speaking, they do a good job of taking away a lot of the stuff that Ben Johnson wants to have as his primaries, right? Like those, we talked about the deep curls, we talk about like digs, by themselves, like they still run concepts that feature dig routes, not as part of dagger. And they're able to, use those safeties, kind of pass off stuff and rob that stuff. Well, you got to find ways to make the defense pay. And they finally got to it with the DJ Moore game winner at the end, right? They were setting it up all game. And then obviously, great timing to get to it. But I want to see more of that earlier in the game. I want to see them take shots, because they're there against these coverages, with them using those safeties to take away kind of those primaries in the middle of the field. Let's work over the top.
I was gonna say, it's almost, I feel like, because of how much Green Bay plays downhill, right? Like that's kind of their bread and butter.
Yes.
That's why Hatley's able to dial up those pressures, because they do just come so quickly. But at the same time, you can weaponize against that, right? Use their aggressiveness against them. That's why teams love to run in the screen game, right? You try to use aggressive defensive linemen against themselves because they think they get a free rush, and DeAndre Swift's 15 yards behind them down the field, and same idea. So I was going to say, do you think, because of how heavy the Packers are coming downhill, that's impacted Ben Johnson as well? Because then the run game maybe does get a little more stale and things just don't work. And then it kind of makes them a little more one-dimensional when it comes to the passing game.
Yeah, I think you get predictable, right? I think some of it's down and distance based. I think, if Ben Johnson is playing behind the sticks, he can't be as aggressive as he wants to be. He can't take those shots. They're not picking up first downs. He can't take those shots. If you're going 3 and out, it's hard to take those shots too, right? You kind of got to get that first down. You hear coaches talk about it all the time. Get that first down, and now you can kind of get into some of your other stuff. And you're a little tight until you get that first down. But once you get that, I think that'll allow them to make some of that stuff happen too.
Absolutely.
Now, how much of that do you think, like, I almost get this feeling lately, the last few weeks watching the Bears, that like Ben Johnson is getting a feel for the defense through a lot of the first half. And that almost feels like, because they haven't been able to get a lot of those first downs, they haven't seen a lot of plays. And it's like, they're late into the first half by the time it starts to feel like he's getting the picture of what the defense is trying to do and able to manipulate. Does that make sense? There's
some truth to that. It's weird because, like, remember earlier in the year, like I felt like they were good with their opening script, and then they kind of struggled after that, right? I think like even week 1, right? They marched down the field and marched down the field against Brian Flores and scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football. And I'm sitting there like, going on StubHub trying to buy my Super Bowl tickets, right? Like, so it's like I don't want to overthink that or put a ton of stock into it. I think it kind of depends on the team they're playing. I think it kind of depends on the way Caleb's playing too. Like there are games where like I feel like he settles in kind of as the game goes, then he can kind of just be himself and he trusts it and he kind of relaxes a little bit as the game goes too. So I really like, I think playing Green Bay twice already, I think that helps the Bears. I think, obviously we saw in the kickoff in the last matchup with them where like, you got, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's jumping on the pile, after the whistle and, they're just super amped up, right? It's a big home game, it's primetime Saturday Night Football, it's a big deal, right? And they feel it in the building, and it's, I think, and then now obviously it's a playoff game, so it's a bigger game, but it's the third time they've done it, they've been there, done that now. And they can kind of just relax right away and they won't be so tight in the first quarter.
Yeah. Now, Bears are getting a big name back this week in Rome Odunze, but in the past, I don't know, what is it, like 4 or 5 games, something like that he's missed. How do you think him not being there has impacted their personnel packages and their call sheet?
Let me send you, I know we're live here, but I'm going to send you quick an example of a concept. That's the wrong one. That really changes how I view his impact. Sorry, this is what do they call this? Bad radio?
Yeah, we got to fill some dead air, Ron.
Filling dead air. Well, thankfully, I'm good at filling dead air, but
All right.
it's a ball I'm good
I'm
at.
screenshotting and I am sending to you
Heck yeah.
via Twitter here.
Well, and like Rome, I mean, from the Rome standpoint, he was so good for the first like half of the year until that foot injury, and it's like his production just tanked after that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bobby?
Not a ton, but I just
Not a ton.
sent you the image and I can kind of
Got it.
show what his impact is going to be.
Heck yeah.
Because he was a pure impact player for the Bears early in the year. There was no doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see. Add the
Well,
image
and Q,
file.
we talked about it too, how much Rome Odunze was relied on in the run game, right? And
Yeah.
Ben said it, right? No block, no rock. And Rome was selling out and really, I feel like when they were kind of not quite, I'm not going to use, right? It's not like your traditional insert, but I would call it like, you hear some people use, I hate the term because I think it's goofy, but like the D gap insert. But that's kind of what a lot of Rome would do in the run game was he would, either motion in and like you mentioned a little bit earlier, Bobby, right? Motioning him in, matching up in the box. He's able to take on a safety or maybe a nickel corner who's kind of snuck his way into the box because of a tight personnel. And they let Rome kind of let loose and fire up. But I'll turn it over to you now.
But I want to talk about that too. And actually, I think DJ Moore the last month or so, he's been a much better blocker. Like in there were two big outside zone variations in the Cleveland game where the way the play was designed, it had him what's called a wall block on the play side linebacker, and he made contact, drove his feet, and really cleared the hole, blocking a linebacker on two instances. Right, like that's a tough block. Asking a receiver, it's one thing digging out a safety, screaming down, coming off the roof and screaming into the box, but it's another thing digging out a backer who's a lot bigger than you, right?
Yeah, got 50 pounds on the guy, like
yeah, exactly. So like, and he had another really good block. I think I want to say it was DeAndre Swift's touchdown against the 49ers where he's blocking his guy, but he can kind of see the Mike linebacker scraping over. It's like the play side guard was supposed to get up to the Mike on this, like, I think it was like a crack sweep or a crack toss concept. And he kind of sees it and he kind of like shields himself to kind of block the play side backer as he's kind of coming across, right? Just enough to get in his way. And Swift is able to sprint and beat the guy, by a step or two to the corner of the end zone. And I'm like, that is outstanding football. And I know we were talking about that outside zone variation earlier, right? Where we're running it strong. The Bears will bring that Z receiver in on a super tight split, like a yard or two from that tight end, right? And so what they'll do is they'll have him kind of slow play it past the force defender up to his corner that he's blocking on that specific variation. So what does that do? All right, so he's kind of occupying time on the force defender. So it could be the Sam linebacker, could be a down safety from that tight split as he's naturally working out to the corner. Based on where he's lined up. And what that does is that allows the tight end and the play side tackle to combo that defensive end for an extra second or two without that force defender screaming up before the tight end's got to peel off, right? It allows that combination another 2 steps to get more vertical movement on these mid-zone runs. Sorry, side tangent, but.
Oh no, I love it. Like
a beautiful
we
side
see
tangent.
We see it all the time in our line show, but we don't break it down that eloquently. So I love to hear it and like process it through the X's and O's aspect.
It's usually a variation of the play starts and I go, oh hell yeah, DJ, and then Q goes, yeah, that's a good block, and that's usually where it ends right there. But that's like you said, the more eloquent X's and O's breakdown for sure.
But yeah, so getting into this diagram, so this is a version of what I call the inside dig concept, right? So it's usually digs and daggers. We're breaking the dig route. It's going to break somewhere like just on the outside edge of the numbers, maybe the inside edge of the numbers. These inside digs break between the hash and the numbers. And most often, so this play's kind of flipped a little bit. This was a version I want to say they ran maybe against Cleveland. With kind of that inverted wishbone backfield is possibly where I pulled this one from. But usually that inside dig will come
from full house.
Yeah, full house. Yep.
It's one of my favorite formations in football. I went on a whole tangent about this on one of our shows before. So
yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff you can do from it, like especially in the run game. But that's definitely a side tangent. But and then so like what they like to pair it with is what this is called a bench route from the X receiver. So it's like an 18-yard comeback, right? They call it a bench because like, hey, go sit down on the bench, right? You're breaking out. So what we're trying to do here is if we have a one-on-one with our X receiver, we need to be able to win this. And Rome Odunze is your best one-on-one downfield route runner. He's your best route runner on these digs. He's your best route runner on these bench routes. So if you've got a guy that can win on these, which DJ Moore wasn't really doing a great job of, this is one thing that I don't think he's been great at this year is these bench routes. The depth isn't quite exactly where it should be. It looks like he's deeper on some of them. He's not creating as much separation as he should. But a guy like Rome Odunze, if you can win these one-on-ones, now this really opens up this entire concept, right? We can read that. Okay, if our X receiver Caleb, say it's under center play action, 7 and a hitch, we're coming up to this bench route, one-on-one, boom, he's going to trust his boy Rome. He's going to get that ball out, okay? If the defense wants to play like cover 2 and like that flat player is going to sit under it, or if they're playing like I don't know if it would be a certain type of quarters. Let's just say cover 2, for instance, right? So you got the safety over the top, so that corner is going to kind of sink into that window. Now what we're going to do is Caleb's going to reset and high-low over the middle of the field now with this dig concept, right? We've got different ways we can run the check down, where the check down kind of has freedom between the hashes to kind of settle in the void. And we've got that inside dig where we're trying to hit this thing, probably by the time he gets to the opposite hash. And we're high-lowing that defender over the middle of the field because the defense has allocated extra help to get under the bench route, right? We're replacing the space that the defenders have left. So a concept like this, it only really works if you've got a guy that can win that one-on-one. Because if the defense can lock up the X receiver one-on-one, they got an extra hook player. They can drop their hook players deep. One of them can jump up for the running back, and one of them can stay back for the Z. And they've got 2 for 2 over the middle of the field, right? But they got to buzz one of those guys under to help out on the bench route. Just from like a big picture, trying to keep it simple, without getting defenders out there and talking too specific of coverages. But it really unlocks, and this is a core concept for Ben Johnson, and it really unlocks the ability to win those types of routes, unlocks the playbook.
Now, when you're saying the high-low, you're talking the Z and the H here?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so I feel like we saw the Lions hit this last week a few times to the A, just like checking it down to the H. And
for sure.
I feel like since Rome's gone out, we've seen the ball go to the H on a concept like this a lot, where you're saying if they don't have the ball, the route winner on the X, you end up having to take the high-low over there. I feel like we've seen that a decent amount.
Yeah, and Caleb's actually been pretty good about taking those checkdowns too, on time, right? Like I was talking about, 7 and a hitch. Yeah, that's hard on paper. Theoretically for the offensive line, it doesn't sound good. But if he's 7 and a hitch and that ball's coming out to the check down because the defense buzzed everybody out of the box, all right, now we're picking up 10, 15 yards. And Caleb's been pretty good at that. You're probably going back to like maybe, when did that start? Like maybe week 9, maybe week 8, somewhere in there. He started taking week 6 too. There was I remember 2 clips on like high cross variations where he got to 7 and a hitch to the check down because the defense kind of, buzzed everyone out. So yeah, that's huge. And it's not as great as hitting that 20-yard bench cut or that 18-yard bench cut. And eventually the defense can rally up, eventually the defense can rally up and take away those checkdowns and be aggressive with them if you're not winning those one-on-ones.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say, I feel like I in my brain, and Bobby, you'll know better than I. You've watched the clips far more than I have, but I feel like this bench route was money for Rome and Caleb, especially in that second half against the New York Giants. I feel like I remember at least 1 or 2 where Caleb had Rome on these. Yeah, similar where it's outbreaking, it's toward the sideline, and he's hitting them, and Rome's right at the sticks, and he's getting out of bounds for a first down.
If I'm thinking about the same play you're thinking of, it's a similar concept, very similar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ron, did you have another question here, or did we touch on this already?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it, but I'll ask it anyway, Bobby, in case there's anything else that you have for it. But we've talked a little bit about the schematics of what the Packers do defensively, right? The coming hard, downhill, they getting aggressive, manufacturing that pressure from other places, and kind of defying those pass protection rules. But do you think there's anything else that might present a unique challenge for the Bears offense that the Packers like to do?
Those pressure packages, and then obviously like the idea of quarters kind of taking away a lot of the primaries and being able to get to those alerts and kind of having fresh ideas in that sense too. Because teams that play a ton of quarters, they know you're trying to hit a post route, on the opposite of the crosser, the high crosser, or you're trying to hit the deep over opposite, like the deep curl, and that's in that case. They're used to seeing some of that stuff. So coming up with some fresh ideas, which he has done, we've seen some of that throughout the year too. So those 2 things are, I think, the keys to success, and obviously finding ways to run the football, but they've been pretty darn good at figuring that out every week this year. I have pretty high level of confidence they'll be able to figure that out.
And so, Bobby, I have one more question. It's I sent it to you as a loose topic, but it's really the reason I messaged you, because I was sitting here trying to figure this out, because I look at Green Bay's defense, their defensive roster, especially without Parsons now. And I see it, not to be disrespectful, but like a lack of difference makers at cornerback. Like they have some solid players, but no one who I'm sitting there going like, that guy is a dude right there who we need to be careful of. And an undersized defensive tackle room that's really kind of lacking for depth right now when they have, 7th round picks, undrafted free agents playing significant snaps. In my mind, I'm looking at this going, Bears should be able to win running between the tackles and throwing outside the numbers. And I'm not really feeling like in the 2 games that we've seen that is consistently happening at the rate that I feel like it should. They've run between the tackles as some, but like it just doesn't feel like it should be on the level that we've seen in other games. So like, are my eyes deceiving me here? Are the Packers doing just something exceptionally well to muck this stuff up? What do you see in this regard?
I'm no expert on Packers defensive personnel. Obviously, Micah Parsons jumped off the tape, whenever I put them on, especially that first matchup. If what you're saying, right, if you've got that pinpointed, what we just talked about, the addition of Rome coming back and winning those one-on-ones on the outside, being able to win on those like post routes, the one-on-one alerts, right? You've got to be able to win against the corner, right? Or the deep over, you win against the safety, but like a post route on a high cross concept, you're working on the corner on that. So you got to be able to win those one-on-ones against those defenders down the field. That bench route, right? That's a one-on-one. It's not an alert. It's the first read in the progression, but that's a one-on-one on the outside. You got to win that stuff. The defensive tackles, if that's the case, you really got to get some movement on our inside zone and our duo combinations. We got to get off the football. We got to move those guys backwards. It's just plain and simple. We got to make it happen.
And so with that run aspect, like what I noticed when I was trying to dig into this after the first Bears game against the Packers, and even, this week leading into this playoff game, their linebackers are just so aggressive to fill. Like they are so aggressive into the hole. So like, what would you do to make them pay for that? Because I feel like the Bears haven't done a ton to make them pay.
Let me find a diagram to send you.
Love it.
Actually, I don't know if I have one handy, so I'll just kind of describe it. So it's I call it a bang route. So it's like a 7-step dig. We're trying to replace those linebackers, which are usually the hook or hole defenders in the coverage scheme. So what we're doing is we're taking a receiver from a condensed split. If we're into the boundary, he's going to be like the inside edge of the numbers. He's going to push up 7 steps, and then he's going to kind of wrap himself in, behind those players. So it's a 5-step play action concept. So Caleb's going to sell the play fake, and on his 5th step, that ball's he's hitting his 5th step, that ball's coming out. Jared Goff has crushed teams with it over the years. The Bears haven't featured it a ton, and I'm actually debating whether or not I'm going to be able to get it in the book because I think they've called it like 7 or 8 times, and they've been efficient with it. But
maybe this is the week that forces you to put it in the book.
Yeah, and it's tough against quarters, though. Once again, it's another tough concept against quarters. You almost kind of have to have that deep over, with it too, right? That boundary safety drive. It's the same similar idea to the deep curl. It's just we're attacking the same void in the defense, but we're doing it with a different type of route, with a different footwork for our quarterback. But it's the same idea. So you can kind of replace them with that. And that deep curl concept that we talked about in the first diagram, it does exactly that, right? Those backers come up on that hard play fake. We're replacing that hook window behind them too. So yeah, both of those concepts kind of fit that mold.
And when you're mentioning too that kind of the deep over, do you think kind of I've literally been taught it as Colt is what I've been told, but it's just your 2-man route concept. Tom Moore ran it a lot with Peyton Manning in Indianapolis, where you almost kind of have that bang route with the inside receiver, and then you've got a deep in over the top of him. Do you think that also could open that up as well, and you can kind of high-low then? Or again, if the backers are being very aggressive, you can still kind of sneak them behind and force those safeties to have to respect that deep in?
Yeah, no, you're right in the sense that when they're aggressive like that, you create the high-low on the safety then, right? And if you want to do, however, I don't think I've seen them run a concept quite like that this year, but something similar, right? What we're trying to do, and that's kind of like what that first diagram, that deep curl, what we're doing, it's doing it differently, right? You're bringing the route from the other side of the field instead of the same side. Is we're creating a high-low on that safety, that to the boundary. I mean, we're not reading it like that, but like that's kind of effectively what we're doing too. Right. So
just to force them into no man's land.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right. And then, Bobby, I know we are pushing up on time. We don't want to take up too much of your time here, but I had one more thing that I didn't send you this, but it was just with how much tape you watch, how much studying of the playbook you have, is there anything you're itching to talk about within the Bears offense that's not maybe particular to Green Bay?
Oh boy. Well, I ordered a proof for the book. The other day, and it came in. So if you want a little sneak peek at it.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So this one, I'm at about 450 pages right now, and they are still not done, right? They're still playing games. So the tables aren't even in there yet. My longest book I've ever written is 349 pages. I think it was like the 2019 Niners book that I did. I have poured my heart and soul into this thing. I think it's a combination of a few things, right? Like Ben Johnson, they run a lot of different stuff volume-wise, run game and pass game. So it's like I got to cover each of them. Within each variation, they do a ton of really unique things that have purpose behind it that I want to talk about, right? So like I have to, so not only is there a lot of concepts, but within each concept, the sections are longer too, because it necessitates it based on, what they're trying to do, right? Like they're not like some teams I've studied where like they'll run a concept, but they'll run the exact same version of it, just dress it up with different motions, right? Like there's not different tags to it. Like we talked about, like with the run game, like the different types of slice blocks, the different type of inserts, like all that stuff has a purpose and there's a reason for it that they include in each weekly game plan. And I make a point to cover it all. So those two reasons are, two of the reasons why it's, so long. The other one is I'm just damn excited watching it, right? I'm a Bears fan. I study a lot of the NFL and, obviously as time goes on, how do I say this? Especially with how bad the Bears have been, you build relationships with other, people around the league and you kind of root for people at that point. But, I always grew up a Bears fan. It's fun seeing them be good. And I've always liked what Ben Johnson has done in Detroit. So the chance to kind of go, pour everything into this has been a lot of fun. So it's not, like I said, obviously not done yet, but I've got a lot of the meat of the sections written. So, unless we sit here for the next 6 hours, I think, I don't know if there's anything specific to cover from it, but.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time, Bobby, before there's enough coach turnover within the NFC North that there's a new coach coming into the division who's going to be buying your book to learn what they need to be scouting. So
heck yeah,
I can't think of any better resource out there to learn an offense. So it's a testament to the work that you do. We appreciate having you on, and can you push your stuff, where to find your work and all of that one more time for our audience to make sure they hear it?
Yeah, like I said, the two best spots are alertthepost.com. It's a Substack. You can subscribe for free or you can subscribe for $5 a month to get access to the cut-ups. And there's a full cut-up library on there too. So like I've got a page where I've linked every cut-up that I've posted over the 2 years that I've been on Substack. And it's at least once a week, if not 2 or 3, where if you're looking for a specific concept, you can find, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were an incredible they were an incredible screen team. I think I had 2 or 3 of their different.
I remember watching a YouTube video you did on it. That was outstanding.
Yeah. So like I put together a couple full season cut-ups. Like if you're looking for different tunnel screen ideas, the Cliff Kingsbury and the Commanders, they ran 37 tunnel screens, all with different actions, backfield actions, different blocking schemes. In 2024, and I posted a cut-up of that too. So if you're looking for like just a ton of specific video for a specific concept, that's the best place to look. So alertthepost.com, and then my ex B_Peters12. I'm real active on there. I try to post, and then my Amazon author page. If you're looking for these manuals and you want to take that deep dive, they're all on there as well. And like I said, this Bears book should be out within probably a week and a half of their last game. Give me some time. And there's a couple more sections I got to write, and then I got to kind of fill in those full season tables that you guys have seen in the previous books to kind of provide a ton of context there. And you see, get your average yards per play and all that stuff in there too. So,
heck yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, Bobby. And Ron, why don't we give a good old bear down, and we'll talk to everyone after the game on Saturday.
Bear down, baby.
Bear down.